the sudden goodbye. When you share 41 years with someone, you begin to believe there are no more secrets, no more surprises. You learn their rhythms, their pauses, the way they like their coffee, and how they hum when they're nervous. You know the smell of their aftershave and the creak of their favorite chair. You build a life from shared memories and mutual silences. That's what I thought I had with Harold, until he died. And everything I thought I knew unraveled. It was a Thursday morning in early spring. I remember because the daffodils in our front yard had just begun to bloom. I was in the kitchen, flipping pancakes, and Harold was reading the newspaper. He made a small noise, a gasp or a sigh, and then slumped forward. I thought he had dozed off. He was always falling asleep mid-sentence. But something felt wrong. The paper slipped from his hands. His coffee spilled. "Harold?" He didn't respond. I called 911. The paramedics arrived in minutes, but it was too late. A heart attack, they said. Quick, painless. That word, painless. It echoed through me for days. The funeral was a blur. Family, friends, neighbors bringing casseroles and awkward hugs. People said things like, "He was such a good man," and "At least you had so many years together." I nodded, smiled, thanked them. I barely felt a thing. At night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. The house felt cavernous. His absence echoed in every room. The quiet was unbearable. I spent the next few weeks moving through our home like a ghost, sorting through his clothes, boxing up shoes, staring at the chair he always sat in. I kept expecting to hear his voice. I opened the closet in the guest bedroom, the one we used for storage. Old blankets, boxes of Christmas lights, Harold's winter scarves. And then I found the box. It was at the back of the closet, beneath a stack of sweaters. A plain navy blue shoebox. I almost didn't open it, but I did. Inside was a stack of papers, yellowed envelopes, and right on top, a letter. My name was written on it in Harold's familiar handwriting. Below that, "To be opened only if I'm gone." My hands shook. I sat on the bed and opened it. This is what it said. "My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, then I'm no longer with you. First, I need you to know how deeply I loved you. Every day of our life together was a gift I never felt I deserved. There is something I never told you. Something I should have shared long ago, but I was afraid. Afraid of losing you. Afraid of hurting you. Before you and I married, there was someone else. Her name was Evelyn. We were young. It was brief. But she became pregnant. I didn't find out until years later, when our daughter, Claire, was already 5. I didn't know how to tell you. So I supported them quietly, financially. I visited a few times each year. I told you I was going on business trips. Claire is a good woman. She deserves to know where she came from. And she deserves to know you, if you're willing. I've enclosed her address. I'm sorry. I hope one day you can forgive me. With all my love, Harold. I reread it 3 times. My ears were ringing. My hands went numb. Claire. He had a daughter. A whole other life. One he kept hidden from me for over 4 decades. I dropped the letter. The room spun. I felt like I couldn't breathe. He was gone. And yet somehow, I was just now learning who he really was. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, the letter in one hand and the envelope with the address in the other. It was a small town 2 hours away. I didn't sleep. I didn't know if I was angry or heartbroken. Maybe both. Maybe something else entirely. All I knew was that I had to see her. Not for Harold, Not even for Claire, but for me. The other life. I stared at the envelope for days. It sat on a corner of the kitchen table, silent and heavy, as though it knew it carried a piece of my husband's soul. The address was neatly printed in Harold's careful handwriting. Just a name, a street, a town I'd never heard of. I Googled it. A quiet community 2 hours south, population barely over 4,000. I imagined a small house with flower boxes. A woman, Claire, maybe in her 30s or 40s. Did she look like Harold? Did she know about me? Did she hate me? I wasn't sure what I expected to find. But after a week of restless nights and long walks that led nowhere, I packed a small bag, filled a thermos with coffee, and drove. The town was quaint. One main street with a post office, diner, and hardware store. I found the address easily. A white cottage with green shutters and a swing on the porch. Toys scattered in the yard. A pink tricycle. Sidewalk chalk drawings fading under the spring sun. I hesitated at the gate. My palms were sweaty. My heart hammered in my chest. Then the door opened. A woman stepped out onto the porch, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked about 35. Chestnut hair pulled into a ponytail. Freckles. Eyes like Harold's. It nearly knocked the wind out of me. She looked at me for a long moment. "Can I help you?" I swallowed hard. "Are you Claire?" She blinked, nodded slowly. I stepped closer. "My name is Margaret. I was Harold's wife." Her eyes widened. She dropped the towel. You're Margaret?" I nodded. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. She came down the steps slowly. "He always talked about you," she said. "I never thought, he said you'd probably never want to meet me." "I didn't know you existed until last week," I said softly. She looked down, then back up, her expression unreadable. "Would you like to come in?" The house smelled of cinnamon and laundry soap. Toys lined the hallway. A small brown dog barked once, then curled up on a couch. Claire poured tea. We sat across from each other, hands wrapped around warm mugs. "He used to come twice a year," she said. "Never stayed more than a day. Birthdays and Christmas, sometimes in the summer. He never forgot. He never told me, not even once." Claire nodded. "Mom said he was ashamed, not of me, but of hurting you. She never pushed. She said it was his guilt to carry. He carried it quietly," I said. "Too quietly." A little girl padded into the room, clutching a stuffed elephant. She was maybe 6. Her hair was in pigtails. She looked at me curiously. "Claire?" I asked softly. "This is my daughter, Lily. Your granddaughter." Lily gave a shy wave. I blinked back tears. I didn't know what to say. We talked for hours. About Harold. About her mother, Evelyn, who passed 5 years ago from cancer. About how Harold had never promised anything more, but had always been present in his limited way. "He brought me books," Claire said. "He never forgot what I liked. But he never stayed. And he always seemed sad when he left." I nodded. "That sounded like Harold." "I used to wonder about you," she said. "What kind of woman you were, if you knew, if you hated me." "I didn't know, and no, I don't hate you." She smiled faintly. "That's good, because I've always wanted to know where I came from. And I guess that's you too." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of it all pressing gently around us. Then Lily climbed into Claire's lap and whispered something in her ear. "She wants to know if you'll come back sometime," Claire said. I looked at her, this stranger who felt like family, and then at the child with Harold's eyes. "Yes," I said. "I think I will." The unspoken bonds. A week passed before I returned to Claire's. I didn't tell anyone, I just packed a container of banana bread, Harold's favorite, and drove. When I pulled up to the white cottage, Lily was drawing chalk flowers on the sidewalk. She looked up, recognized me, and grinned. "Grandma!" The words struck me like a bell. Claire stepped out onto the porch, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Hi," she said softly. "You came back! I told you I would." That afternoon we sat in her kitchen, drinking tea and eating the banana bread. It felt strange and comforting, like stitching together the past and present with quiet gestures. Claire showed me old photos of Harold from birthdays and summer visits. In every picture, he looked older, a little sadder, but always gentle. She told me how he had taught Lily to play checkers, how he brought her science kits and read to her from books he kept in a worn leather satchel, the same one he used to take on business trips. He told her stories about a lady who loved flowers and made the best apple pie. Claire said, smiling, "I think he meant you." My eyes filled with tears. We started seeing each other more, weekend visits. Lily would braid my hair, giggling the whole time. I brought her old storybooks that once belonged to my sons. I watched Claire in her world, working nights as a nurse, baking cookies with Lily, doing her best with so little help. "I always did things alone," she told me one evening. "Mom was sick a lot. I didn't have much family. I think I learned not to expect anyone to stay." "I'm staying," I said. She looked at me like she wasn't sure whether to believe it, but I meant it. I had nothing to run from, only something new to build. My own children were surprised, even wary. "You're telling me Dad had a daughter with another woman?" my son David asked over the phone. "And you're okay with that?" "No," I said honestly, "but I'm making peace with it." "Why would you want to get involved with them now?" "Because she's not responsible for what he hid, and she's family, whether you like it or not." There was a long pause. Then, quietly, "Are they nice?" "They're lovely." That summer, we invited Claire and Lily to the lake house. My sons came too, with their families. I was nervous. So was Claire. But it was Lily who broke the ice. She brought a drawing for each cousin, asked if they wanted to go frog hunting. By the end of the weekend, the kids were playing in the water, laughing like they'd known each other forever. Even David warmed up. I caught him teaching Lily how to fish. "She's got his stubbornness," he said with a chuckle. "And his kindness," I added. That night, Claire and I stood on the dock, watching the moon ripple over the lake. "Do you ever get angry at him?" she asked. I took a long breath. Yes, all the time. But then I remember he gave me 2 sons, and he gave me you too, even if I didn't know it. She looked down. "I used to think I was just a mistake." "You weren't. You aren't." In the fall, I sold the big house. Too many rooms, too many memories. I bought a small place 30 minutes from Claire's. We visit often. We have Sunday dinners. Lily keeps a toothbrush in my guest bathroom. Sometimes when she hugs me, she whispers, "You're my grandma now for real." And I whisper back, always, "People say grief ends." I don't believe that. I think it changes shape. It becomes softer, quieter. It makes room for other things, like forgiveness and second chances. Harold wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, big ones, but he left behind love. Not the kind that comes easy, but the kind you have to choose again and again. And I choose it every day.